If we didn't have anger, nothing would ever change because nobody would ever get upset enough to take action where action is necessary. That's the actual true necessary function that anger serves.
Right. I always compare it to the warning lights on our car dashboard, right? They're not like the check engine light or any other light. The way I tell the story is it doesn't mean stop the car right where you are, put on the brakes, turn the motor off and call for help. It's you need to look at this. There's something that needs to be examined and taken care of. Welcome to Daily Power Boost. I'm Shawn Michael. This isn't a podcast about pushing harder or fixing yourself. It's a space to see clearly how your experience is actually being created. Each episode offers a simple shift in understanding, not a tactic, not a hustle, a clearer view of thought, identity, and the patterns you've been living inside. Because when misunderstanding drops, relief rises, energy returns. You move forward with calm, sovereign clarity. This is your Daily Power Boost. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Daily Power Boost. I'm Shawn Michael, and today I'm joined by Sandra Lee, who teaches what she calls the spectrum of anger. Her work helps people understand how anger shows up in many forms, from irritation and resentment to silence and burnout, and how our relationship with anger often shapes our leadership, boundaries, and our sense of self far more than we realize. This is a conversation about listening to what anger is trying to tell us, instead of fighting it or fearing it. Welcome, Sandra.
Oh, thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here.
And which part of the world are you in, Sandra?
I am in British Columbia,
Brr.
Canada,
So it's a bit chilly up there, I think.
and not quite as chilly and snowy as other places are right now because it's been pretty wintry.
Yes, that's what I've heard. And I'm sitting down here with like 78, 79 every day. So not much to be angry on that front. All right. So to kick us off, Sandra, most people think anger is something that we should control or suppress. And today I want to talk about how understanding anger, it's a signal, right? Not a flaw. And because I feel that when we don't understand anger properly, it can leak into our leadership, our relationships, our health, etc.
Well, let's talk about why it is that that happens. Because anger itself is a natural emotion. And it's important that we be able to feel it, express it, and get our needs met around it. But there are so many people in the world for whom anger is a problem. And this really originates in childhood. So think back to your childhood. Was there anyone in your childhood life who had anger that was a real problem? Someone who was explosive or dangerous or yelling and screaming and throwing things. That's what some people's experience of anger is. And if that's the case, if that's the case for you, then anger is dangerous. It's violent, and it's definitely something to fear and something to avoid. So, for people like you, Shawn, who had that experience, did you leave childhood inside your head? I am not going to become angry because anger is a problem. Was that your
I had
experience?
a shelf full of bottles with my anger in them.
Oh, yes. So you bottled it away and it's like, this is not allowable for me. So that's what a lot of people's experience of anger is. And then there's another aspect that is similar but different. So I did not have that violent person in my childhood. What I had was a mother who basically told me that anger was bad. that I should not be angry. So the message wound up being the same. Being angry is not okay. It just came from a different source. It came from someone else imposing that restriction upon me. So, as someone who works with other people therapeutically, as a massage therapist and as an energy healer, all of the time, I find people who have this should about anger not to be. This is bad. And there are so many people in the world who, because they had to suppress anger, they also wound up suppressing all of the other emotions as well. So when I work with people and I ask them what emotion they feel, sometimes people don't have an answer unless it's I'm happy, I'm joyful, I'm excited. They don't have access to any of the challenging or negative emotions. Does that make sense to you, Shawn?
Yeah, exactly. As you said, I was thinking, as you said that people don't have access, I was thinking that for me, it dulled other, especially the challenging ones, or what most people would call negative. I buried those away because that was the lesson I took.
Yeah.
These challenging or negative emotions, just put them away, keep them to yourself. Nobody needs to see them. I did grow up in that era where I'll give you something to cry about.
Mm, yeah. Well, and here's the thing. Anytime I have to suppress an aspect of myself, what happens? I wind up suppressing everything. If I had to put a damper on any challenging, problematic emotions, any excitement and joy and happiness also gets suppressed. Because it's not possible for me to, hit an off button on one aspect of my life. I wind up having to tune the whole thing down, and I just become like a dull, pressed person in general. So for me, suppressed anger and getting upset, because that was part of the message from my childhood. I was too active and energetic and emotional. And my mother got upset when I got upset, angry. And I was like, I can't express myself. And so I shut all of it down. Such that when I became an adult and a counselor or a coach asked me, well, how do you feel? I didn't have an answer. Didn't have an answer for how I felt. It didn't have answers for what do you want? Who do you want to be? All of those things all of it got clamped down. As I work with people, I find this is such a common experience. Almost everyone who is not accomplishing what they want to accomplish in the world, so they're seeking help with me. I do neuro-linguistic programming, okay, or energy healing, or even massage. Everyone has suppressed these fundamental parts of who they are. So I now am on a mission to reframe our experience of anger. So here's how I define the anger spectrum. Okay, we have all of these different challenging negative emotions. Everything from I'm uncomfortable, I'm worried, I don't know how to do this, I'm afraid I don't look good in this dress, are people going to like me? Those are all a little bit uncomfortable. Okay, all the way up to anger, rage, and everything in between. What if we call all of that the spectrum of anger? And then we start to give ourselves access to experiencing and feeling and expressing and get our needs met around these things as normal. What happens when I can fully feel and express anger, fear, guilt, all these things, and communicate about them and get our needs met? What if I can ask for what is it I need from my spouse, my children, my parents, from all the people in my life? What if I'm able to take whatever it is that's going on with me, communicate about it, and ask for what I need, and then be able to actually receive what I need from these people? It doesn't get stuck. It changes everything. And what this looks like is being able to just be myself, however it is I am. Communicate, express myself, and ask for support, help, whatever it is I need. Changes everything.
Right. And feel what you feel in the moment. Let it flow through. As you said, be able to communicate a crossed boundary, an unmet need, whatever the underlying trigger. I don't know if I want to say trigger, but whatever has brought up that emotion for us, which anger is almost always, like you said, an unmet need, a crossed boundary. It might be a boundary somebody else crossed. It might be you crossed your own boundary. I find that a
Mm-hmm.
lot. People are really, it's easy to put boundaries out here, and some people find some challenge enforcing their boundaries because I find part of that is a misunderstanding of the way boundaries are meant to work. But how many times do we cross our own boundaries?
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
it's
So
it's so
often.
often. It's real, as I said, it's
Yeah.
easy to forgive others, it's hard to forgive yourself. It's easier to put boundaries outside than it is to honor your own boundaries with yourself.
So let's talk about this word that you've introduced, boundaries. What are boundaries? To tell you the truth, I don't have a dictionary definition of boundaries, but what makes sense to me is a boundary is like a line beyond which, if someone crosses it, it makes me uncomfortable. It makes me upset, right? There's physical boundaries. If someone gets too physically close to me, it's like, ooh, it just makes me a little bit uncomfortable. But it could also be if somebody says something that steps over a boundary for me. Or like you're saying, I have ways in which I don't, live within my own boundaries. I overstep what I think I should do, and then I'm upset with myself. So all of these different boundaries are, so what's the limit beyond which it makes me unhappy, uncomfortable, irritated, and even possibly angry?
Right.
So this has me think about, like, what's going on in the world right now? The world is chaotic. There's all sorts of conflict between people fighting each other. You know, I'm an American, right, as well as a Canadian. And looking at in America, there's like sections of the population that are fighting against each other, even within one extended community of the country. There is so much conflict going on. Now, what would happen if all people had the freedom to be able to feel and express their emotions and how they feel, and to communicate their needs and feel like they get them met? What if over all time now, from today forward, everyone was able to express their emotions and get their needs met around them? Would we have a society, a world right now that's got all this chaos and conflict? Probably not.
Definitely would be less.
Oh my goodness, the difference would make. And so if we think about this situation right now, like the social situation I just described, where you have these different sections of people, and part of what I perceive is going on with them, that these all separate groups, they all feel like, here I am, I have my opinions, and I am not understood by these other people, right? Taking this one-on-one inability to feel understood and seen and allowed to be who I am, and we extend it to the whole society. Because right now, we have all these different groups, factions, that are like, this is important. You need to pay attention to me. And this person's like, I don't agree with you. I have this other thing. And it's like, it's all conflict. Ultimately, it's all nobody really having the freedom to be themselves, and certain emotions, certain expressions are not allowable, are not socially acceptable, creating this explosive situation. So, in the world right now, I perceive a huge need to reframe this experience of anger so that we can all be with however it is we feel, express it, and get our needs met.
Well, and the challenge is when you've got two conflicting sides, right? They're both operating from that unmet needs, unfelt emotion. And you mentioned you do NLP, and I know about NLP. And what I learned in NLP is sometimes, most of the time, the anger you're feeling right now has nothing to do with the active situation. It traces back to something somewhere that it's like the scab that never healed, right? It's like, oh, that scratched the scab off again. And I use that analogy because I recently chopped a chunk out of my finger and it's a
Ooh.
little tender. It's like I had one day, everything's fine. And then yesterday, it's like, oh, that hurts. It's still quite tender. And it's the same way with our emotions because, as we said, these challenging so-called negative emotions, they've never been fully felt and processed,
Yeah.
right? Even if
Here's
we
here's a
do
here's a
express
model I like
them,
to use.
right? There's 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 a boundary. Like I can only express my anger to here.
Yeah. Here's an example, a model I like to use. So imagine there's this big cauldron in front of you, this big, huge pot, and there's liquid in it. And all of your unresolved stuff from your entire life is in this pot. Okay. And on the surface of the liquid are the things that you're actively working on. And then below that are things that you know of but aren't actively working on. And at the bottom are things that are so deep and dark that you don't even know that those things happened. Okay. So imagine all of the unresolved stuff from my childhood, all the unresolved stuff from being in school, all the unresolved stuff from being an adult and in marriage and all these things. It's all in there. Okay. So imagine there's all this unresolved stuff here. I think of it as being like kindling. Okay. So when somebody says something and it triggers me, it hits the kindling, it's like, whew, and you get explosive anger. Now, that used to be me. Like at the drop of a hat, I would be angry and literally explosive. Okay. That's what it's like having all of this unresolved stuff. It's just kindling, waiting around for something to set you off, and then you're off to the races. Okay. But now I've been doing healing work for over 30 years, taking all of this stuff. I was like, okay, so do I need to be upset about that? No. I was like, okay, take that out. And pulling all of this unresolved stuff out of there so that the volume of unresolved garbage in my cauldron is way lower. So if somebody says something to me that used to set me off in the past, I was like, that's interesting. That used to really upset me. It doesn't anymore. So I don't do the explosive thing, right? The last time I got explosively angry was, I don't know, over 20 years. It's been a long time because I've taken care of all this stuff. There's always more, but I've resolved so much of it.
Right.
So I don't get angry like that anymore, which is wonderful. I'm so much happier. So that now, when anger shows up, it's natural, understandable, and important anger. Because anger is really a signal that something is needing to be addressed. It's not quite right, and we need to do something. So now anger goes up. It's like, oh, what am I angry about? Oh, this thing. Okay, so I go deal with it. And then I never get actively upset at all because I allow anger to be the actual signal it is. If we didn't have anger, nothing would ever change because nobody would ever get upset enough to take action where action is necessary. That's the actual, true, necessary function that anger serves.
Right. I always compare it to the warning lights on our car dashboard, right? They're not like the check engine light or any other light. The way I tell the story is it doesn't mean stop the car right where you are, put on the brakes, turn the motor off and call for help. It's you need to look at this. There's something that needs to be examined and taken care of. It's the same with these emotions, the sadness, the anger, the guilt, all of it. When it comes up, I like the analogy, right? To clear some of the tinder away so it's
Mm-hmm.
not so explosive when a match hits. Because life will throw matches in your tinder box. That's the way it
It's going to
works. It
happen.
works. It's
That's life.
that's life. Things happen. People are operating in their own map and their path, and sometimes we're feeling angry because they did that, and it's like they don't even realize they bothered you, right? Because they were just piloting through their day.
Well, and here's another thing, that responds to what you just said. So, in NLP, we talk about this a lot. Okay. Some stimulus comes in. This can look like somebody saying something, like my husband saying something or something like that. Right.
Mhm.
And what my nervous system does is it takes that in and then it goes to my filing cabinet. My filing cabinet of all the stuff that's ever happened to me in my life, and my response to it is in the filing cabinet. So when my husband says something, my nervous system says, oh, this is just like that file in my filing cabinet. And my nervous system says, this coming in is the same as that. Okay. If what the reference material was, oh, that was bad, this was a real problem, then in the moment today, I'm going to think, oh, he just said something bad. It's a problem because it's the same as this. This is why we overreact to things. I was like, what did I say? Well, what's not recognized is I am making an association with what you said with something that happened in the past that was, oh, that was a real problem. I have to avoid that. So I get upset. And when it gets down to it, if we actually look at it, I was like, oh, well, you said this and I reacted that. But, what did I get so upset about that before? Because you didn't really say anything, any big deal. When we're able to pull those pieces apart and recognize, oh, I'm overreacting to something. I apologize. Like you said something and I totally made something else about it that was not what you intended. And communication is the way through.
Well, and I heard that in a relationship, if you think of like a pool or the seashore, right? There's levels of communication.
Mm-hmm.
Many relationships stay in level 1 and level 2, the shallow waters,
Mm.
because as you cross from the second tier to the third tier, there's this big wall called conflict. And often because we haven't learned to deal with, we learned to suppress, we decided to suppress to protect. We turn around and run. Like, oh no, conflict, run away, go back over to the shallow side. The secret is through communication, as you've said, there's a door that you can go right through the wall and get to the deeper, more fulfilling levels of communication and relationship. But it
Here's
takes, as you said, slowing down, because I agree, the nervous system, and it's NLP talks about it, polyvagal theory talks about it, right? That this comes in and it fires off something so automatic and so fast. You're like, whoa, why did I get so angry over that? Like sometimes you stop and you go, why did I get angry over that? because it's just automatic. And we
Mhm.
have to process and retrain the body and the mind.
Here are some practical strategies for this that I learned from human design, which I now apply to really everything. So, anytime something like that happens, it's like, whoa, we're starting to get upset here. My recommendation is says like, oh, hold on. It feels like we're starting to get a little agitated here. Why don't we go our separate ways? Go back to being calm and centered, and then come back and work it out. So just anytime it's like things are escalating, it's like, oh, let's pause. Okay. Come back when we both can be ourselves. Okay. That's one thing. Okay. Another is if I have to start a conversation with somebody, what people often do is they just go over and they just start talking at the person. Understandably, this other person's just like, whoa, wait a minute. And they resist.
Mhm.
Okay, here's my recommendation. Again, coming from human design. If I have to have a conversation with this person and it might be uncomfortable, I might have suggestions or feedback or special requests that this person might, agitate them. Okay, so I go over and I says like, hey, I have something it would be good for us to talk about. I think you're really going to want to know this. Would you be willing to have a conversation with me? And if the person says no, then don't tell them. Because what people often do is if they have something to say, like they have a complaint about the person or a
They
suggestion,
just,
they don't, and that person just backs
right.
off, like, and then they shut down. You're not getting anywhere then. Okay. But if I say, hey, are you open to having a conversation with me? And the person says no, don't tell them. And then you're training them that if you say no, that you actually respect that. So the next time you go and say, hey, I want to have a conversation with you, this person realizes that you don't blow over them and you actually respect them. It's like, sure, we can have a conversation. And then there's another step. Is now a good time? Well, the truth is I'm busy right now, but we can do it and then find a time. Okay. So this makes so much difference because this person is ready for a conversation.
They're
They know
receptive.
you have
They're
something important to
receptive
say to
instead
them
of
and they're prepared.
the defensive wall safety zone. And that also aligns with rapport in NLP, right? If
Hmm.
they're sitting there calmly eating their breakfast and you come in like, hey, we need to talk right now, like they're not going to, the connection is going to be severed, right? There's no connection. They're
Yes.
going to shut down. um I really see that having an 8-year-old son, like, you know, kids are great demonstrators of what we as adults should change, because if they're not responding,
Mhm.
they're more sensitive to it than adults. Adults, we've conditioned ourselves or been conditioned to, the wife says, "Oh, we need to talk." Oh, okay, great. Like, I know I need to protect the relationship, but I'm not looking forward to this. And we tough through it. And as men with suppression tendencies, okay, which doesn't serve the relationship, it doesn't serve the communication. I want to look at this. So we're talking in general. We've been talking a lot about in general, various relationships, the societal conflicts that we're seeing globally. But in your opinion, how do you feel unexamined anger distorts things like company culture and leaders or decision making?
Oh my goodness, it's huge. We've all heard of the toxic work environment and all of the people we know who were in corporate and had to get themselves out and they start their own business. It's such an issue. And not really being part of corporate culture myself, I'm just kind of making it up a little bit. But in these environments, there's a boss, there's an authority figure, and everyone else just has to follow along and do what they say. And there's maybe not like negotiation, like talking about what is it we're doing and what is it you need me to do, and ability to give feedback to the higher up person. And this is like it's top down as opposed to working together. And so if someone has some aspect of what is being required of them that they don't agree with, or that doesn't work for them for whatever reason, they just have to buckle down and do it and grumble about it, leading to all sorts of unfinished business, and leads to that explosive possibility, because all of my experiences are not clean and clear, and there's all kinds of unresolved stuff. And um, communication, I think, is insufficient in those cases, so that everyone feels like they have the ability to experience what they're experiencing and communicate about it and get their needs met. Again, like we talked about at the beginning, in those environments where you have lots of people in one place, all ideally heading towards success in one area, if each person is not able to communicate and get their needs met, it leads to all kinds of resentments and upsets and talking about people behind their back, and all kinds of
Right.
like
Yeah, office
really nasty
gossip
stuff.
and
Yeah, yeah,
the and you're exactly right. Having served in the military and been in corporate environment, it's very common, like you said, it's hierarchical, and I'm the boss, you will do what I say, or you can dust off your resume. And today I've seen it. I had somebody I was working with, and they're just burned out. They're like, you can see it. They're a walking zombie. They go to work every
yep.
day and they do their job, but they're burned out at work. They're burned out at home because that relationship is struggling. Two young kids. Like, she's this person, I see it, and I'm like, I ask questions. I don't tell people, oh, you need to. You use that should, and you padded it, which I appreciate, because that's a bad word in my vocabulary. You should do this or you should do that. But I was talking to her and I'm like, well, could you take an extra day off 1 week? Oh, no, I couldn't do that. Why not? Well, and it's exactly like we said, it's this command and control. And that shows up because leaders haven't, like anyone, haven't been trained or anything to deal with it. And we also see it, like I was doing research for the book I'm working on, and I think it was like 70% or more of employees leave the company for one reason: their manager.
Wow, that's huge.
80% of middle management hires are mishires. And nobody wants to be a manager most of the time when they surveyed. These are from Gallup and other reputable research firms. Nobody wants to be a manager because they know it's a sure path to burnout, because you got the
Ooh.
tier above, pressure, 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 and no support, no training. Often the person who's the team lead or the manager was the top person on the team. Like, they were the best at doing the frontline work, and the manager left, and it's like, oh, you're the manager now. You're the best, front desk person. You're the best developer. You're now the manager. Good luck.
There are a couple of different scenarios that I have experienced feeding into that. One is, like you said, there's this management position open, and you take someone whose skill, whose joy, who what they're good at is doing the production work.
Mm-hmm.
And because they're successful in the production work, they are natural to be promoted to the manager. But management is an entirely different set of skills. So if people are really good at doing the production work, they are not going to like being managers and they're not going to be good at being managers. So there's a misfit.
Right.
Okay. And then there's another situation that maybe happens, I'm hoping, less frequently, where there is someone who is down lower and they're a problem. And there are a lot of environments where it's virtually impossible to fire someone. And so if someone is causing a problem here, they put them up into management where they're out of the way,
Right.
kind of.
They try to
But then it takes the problem,
move
yeah,
them
it
out
takes the
of the
problem, yeah, it takes the problematic person and puts them in a position where they are managing more people and actually causing more problems. So that leads into the situation where, all of these people are leaving because of their manager, because you have somebody who was bad when they were lower in the totem pole and you put them higher just to get them out of the way, but it actually makes them more of a problem than they were before.
Yes. And would you say that this suppressed anger or other emotions on the spectrum leaks into what we call micromanagement, withdrawal, and even burnout?
All of the above.
Yeah.
Again, this spectrum of anger is all of the uncomfortable emotions. People don't usually suppress their joy and their happiness and their excitement and their expansive and their
Right.
generosity. That's not usually what people suppress. They suppress anything that's uncomfortable. Oh, I'm not supposed to be this way. Put a lid on it. And then all of that stuff gets stuffed inside until you get like that explosive capacity when something sets it
Right.
off.
Till the cauldron is stirred
Mm-hmm.
and well, and that leads to something I learned had to go through was I was the nice guy all my life, meet a girl, oh, you're really nice, but, or at my local church, like they stopped calling other volunteers because they're like, just call Shawn and his wife. They'll show up. They're reliable. They'll do it. They'll say yes. So I was a people pleaser, nice guy.
Yeah.
And I learned it's because I was taught through one of the two ways. I feel like it was the first one you explained, like anger is danger, so I suppressed it. But
Mm-hmm.
regardless of how we suppress it, it can come out as being overly nice, zero boundaries.
Yeah. And then you are counted on to be the reliable person. And what stews under the surface there? Was there resentment or everybody's always calling me? Why doesn't anybody ever thank me? Whatever it is. And it just kind of like festers under there until it's like, stop asking me to do things.
Oh yeah.
I'm tired of this. Everybody's always coming to me and I hate it. Whatever.
I was like
Right?
the Incredible Hulk, right? You could push
Mm.
and push and push and push and push and never like, wow, Shawn's so calm, he's cool as a cucumber. But there was a point, that final push, it was like, you don't want to see me when I'm angry. Because
Yeah.
it was not just explosive, it was over the top.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in your work, you said you've encountered this several times, whether it's massage or energy work, etc. how does all this suppressed emotions on the spectrum, how have you seen it show up physically or relationally?
Absolutely. So, anytime I am suppressing any emotion, it stores in the body and it stores in the energy field. So, I stuff it and I stuff it and I stuff it. And ultimately, it becomes tension, pain, headaches, digestive upset. Ultimately, if I'm not paying attention to it, it becomes dis-ease. It becomes actually being sick. And then you have to pay attention to it. When I'm stuffing it and I'm stuffing it, I'm stuffing it, in relationship, that leads to explosive fights. And even when it's happening, if you're paying attention, you can feel the tension building up inside. And this is actually what's really helpful, because if you allow yourself to notice the tension as it's building, it's like, oh, I'm really holding on there. What's happening? Well, I didn't express myself when I was talking with that person. Okay. And then you actually deal with it. So, this ability to read the signals, notice, oh, I'm really stressed right now. That's because I had that conversation with that person and I was holding it all in. Oh, okay. Well, let me let that out of there. I don't have to hold that in there. So, it's not building up. But absolutely, if you don't allow that to be communicated, allow those things out of there, it piles up in your body, becomes pain, sickness, dis-ease, and wipes you out,
Yeah.
messes up your relationships, all the above.
Yes. And you make a valid point, and I saw this in my own, like, so I went from suppress, 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 stuff, stuff, stuff. It exhibited in many of the, not no so much in the disease ways, other than, gaining a lot of weight, but I ended up in depression. Oh yeah, I used to be
Mhm.
like 20, 30 pounds heavier when I was in the US
Mhm.
because one, the activity level, the food, but also I know it's because un we'll call it unfelt emotions, suppression,
And
emotional
it's
suppression.
protection.
Yeah, and
Yes.
that also builds the automatic response, right? Because it becomes automatic. Your body's like, okay, this is my protection system. It's just like the burglar alarm that shuts all the doors to lock the criminal in the safe, right? It's your body is trained again and again and again. So
Yeah.
when the feeling comes, lockdown. And at one point, I learned, like, okay, I can't suppress anger anymore. I need to stop suppressing these challenging, uncomfortable emotions.
Mhm.
But at the time, I didn't have the knowledge or the
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 skills.
guidance or the skills. So
Yeah.
I went from bottling it up and, being the Incredible Hulk to a hair trigger,
Mm.
which didn't serve either. Like I
Yeah.
was like,
No.
and I had to kind of do, I call it the pendulum. Like often as humans, we're up here on one extreme, and instead of making minor adjustments, because we don't know how,
Mm.
we go,
Mm.
oh,
Mm.
this isn't working. We swing all the way over here. Oh, that's not working. So let me go back over here. And you get this, eventually, it settles out. So, from your experience, Sandra, how do we help people not do that, not go through what I went through of going from bottling it all up, being able to tolerate a ton before I exploded, to being like the steam puffs on an old steam engine, poof, 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 like every second.
Oh my goodness. Well, so if anybody is watching or listening to this and that's you, contact somebody, contact a practitioner who can help you. That is not a journey to make on your own. Just like Shawn was just describing, his attempt to go from one end of the pendulum swing to the other meant like bouncing back and forth and being miserable and destroying your relationships and making yourself sick and all of that. If you work with a practitioner who can help you take this unresolved stuff that is trying to like just explode out and give you a way to manage it that allows you to let it out a little bit at a time and heal yourself along the way and to have love and compassion for yourself and to be more understanding with the people in your life and give you ways to be able to talk about all these things. Find a practitioner to work with. There's so many different types of practitioners out there. There's counseling. Personally, I have not found counseling to be helpful because people go to counseling forever without actually finishing what it is they're working on. There are a lot of people doing healing types of work, NLP, all sorts of other things that are available to help you in a manageable way, be able to take these things a little bit at a time and release yourself from the grip that they have on you, and to be able to decide, who do you want to be? How do you want to feel? When doing NLP with people, I often have the experience that somebody comes to me and they're all stuck and they're all buried and whatever. And then we start doing the NLP and they reach me, I was like, I don't know who I am. How do I respond? Because all of their habitual responses are no longer available to them. They've realized they don't want to be that way, but they don't know how to be instead. It's a good place to be in. You're no longer reacting the automatic way. But then you get to decide, what do you actually want? How do you want to feel? What do you want your relationships to look like? What do you want to be doing? You empty it out and then you put in what you actually feel good about, who you want to be.
That's very,
It's much easier than going the
oh,
swing
yeah.
thing.
And it's very important, as you said, once this has all been taken out, you've got to put new in. Because if we don't, the old will go back in, it'll
Reinstalled
reinstall
itself.
itself. Yeah, it's almost like the computer virus, right? If you don't clean it all the way, it will just redo itself. And as you were talking about people that did all the clearing with you and they're like, "Oh, I don't know who I am." I kind of thought of factory reset on your phone, right? It's like you had all your everything organized or you changed phones. Like my wife just got a new phone and it's driving her crazy because not only is it a new phone, she went from iOS to Android and they work so differently. And so she's
Uh-huh.
going through the growing pains. But it's the same thing that's the advantage of having a professional who
Mm-hmm.
who can guide you and help you through the process of clearing the old out, defusing the bomb before it blows up on you, and install the right things with you. As a guide, as a coach, you're installing it. I think of it like when I people like, well, how do I put this app in my phone? Well, okay, go to the app store. Great. Go to the search, type this. That's what I'm doing as a coach, right? Like, what app do you
Uh-huh.
want? Okay, here's how you do it, right? I'm not putting anything in. I'm guiding you through the process of putting the right apps in and taking the bad ones out.
And then what you get to do is you get to experiment with it. You put the app in You put the way of being, you put the way of responding to someone in, and you see what happens. Because when I change how I interact with people, it takes some time for it to settle out. If I was always acted this way with my husband and I change my behavior, sometimes that might be upsetting to them.
Uh-huh.
It's like, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing because I changed. Right? So I need to interact with this person. It's like, hey, just so you know, I'm changing some things and this is ultimately going to be helpful for you or whatever, but talk with them and then allow them to have their response and then you adjust. Okay. I make all sorts of recommendations to people. Try this, do this, and then see how it goes because sometimes it's going to work great right at the beginning. Oh, hey, it was good. I had this conversation and everything was awesome. But sometimes you try it and you don't do it very well because you're not in practice. So it's understandable. There's a learning curve and this person is not expecting a change. So when you change your behavior, this is like, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. Right? So it just takes some practice. And so this is part of the benefit of having an ongoing coaching relationship where it's like, okay, so do these things, see what happens. Then the next time you come back, it's like, well, this kind of worked and that didn't, and this is what happened. So you can adjust it over time. Here's what I say. You train people in your life what to expect in interacting with you. You train them. If you have a relationship with somebody where they are really like with you, you train them to be that way. You have to understand that. You have to take some responsibility for it. But this also means that you can retrain them. If I used to interact with somebody this way, they're going to respond a certain way. When I interact with them they have to adjust and
Right. Their
respond.
system has to update.
Yes. So that the relationship can go from being like this to being like this. And we can back and forth and have it be functional. But you have to train people and it takes time.
Yes. Just like it takes time to make the change, it's going to take time for those we interact with to adjust to the new status quo, we'll say. Because as humans, our brains, they're prediction machines.
Mm-hmm.
And they like when things are predictable. And when they're no longer predictable, threat, that's not the response that I normally get. What do I do now? And so that's, like you said, if you've been the person that's always saying yes, and suddenly you tell that person, your loved one, your boss, your colleague, and suddenly you say no, they're going to be like, wait, what? Like, you're not the same.
Yes. And it's a threat. It's dangerous.
To them, it's a threat. Yeah.
Yeah. This is also true in relationship with me, myself, and I.
Absolutely.
Internal changes. It takes time, trial and error, practice, adjusting. Don't expect yourself to get it all perfect in the beginning because it doesn't happen.
Absolutely. So we are at the hour or just about. So I got two final three. What about healthy anger? What does that look like from your perspective?
Healthy anger. Okay. If I get a little annoyed or upset at my husband doing something, here's an example that happens all the time. Okay. There is something I use, a little measuring cup I use in the kitchen all the time. And I go looking for it and it's not there. Because my husband's way of putting dishes away is out of sight, out of mind. He just puts it wherever he needs to go so that he doesn't see it anymore and then it's done. But that doesn't mean it's where I'm expecting it to be. So when I go to the drawer and it's not there, it's like, okay, right? So I was like, I can go to him and it's like, hey, you put it in the wrong place. Where is it? That's about as intense as anger gets for me normally now. It's like a little bit of annoyance, irritation, and maybe even making fun about it because because it's normal, right? I have a normal response to something needing to be done. Okay. Here's another example. I don't necessarily like the things that some of the government is doing. I was like, hey, I have to acknowledge that they're doing something that I don't like, and this upsets me. I feel angry about this. But I don't have any ability to impact that situation at all. That is totally out of my control. So, what I'm going to do with this actual anger is acknowledge that it's there and then choose to let it go. Because sometimes there's something that I am angry about that I have zero ability to have an impact on the situation. But acknowledging that I feel it that way, allow myself to feel it and express it is important. And then, because it's out of my control, choose to stop reacting to it.
Exactly. Yeah.
That helps me release it from my system, being able to communicate about it, feel it, and then drop it.
Yeah, exactly.
There's
That's
two
that's
different
the
ways to
first
respond to
question
it.
is like, do I have any level of control of changing it? If not, then like you said, express it, let it flow, and move on. If I have control, then we can take the steps to say, you know what? Just leave it on the counter. Don't put it away. Or where did you put it this time? With me, that's dangerous because I put things away safe and then I forget.
And, in that situation with this little measuring cup thing, just an example, I really don't have any control over the situation because the truth is my husband's going to put things away the way he does them. He's not going to stop doing that.
Right.
Right. So it's like just acknowledging, you know what? This is not that big a deal. Allow myself to express it, communicate about it, ask where is it, and then take care of the situation. And sometimes I still need to let go of having control.
Yeah. Yeah.
So much more peacefulness that
Yes.
way.
Yes. When we realize we have a control of a lot less than we think we do.
And letting go of needing to have control. Because if I have to control everything, that makes me kind of responsible for it. And that puts all that responsibility for other people on me. And I really don't want that.
Right. And like we said, that's just another one of those in the spectrum that causes this constant irritation, inflammation
Mhm.
that's just waiting for the next thing to rub up against it.
Yes.
All right. Then for someone listening who's either feeling constantly irritated or the other side completely disconnected from anger, what would
Mm.
you say is a small shift? Because, like we said, this isn't about ripping the lid off and letting it all out. This is small shifts. So, what's one small shift you would say they could make this week?
So, if this is something you want to learn to handle differently within yourself, here's a first step. Okay. First, if you have somebody in your vicinity who is actively causing this irritation for you, get yourself out of the situation. I'm not necessarily saying leave the relationship altogether, because if this is your partner, for example, that's not possible, right? But, get yourself out of the room so that you can calm yourself down. And then when you're in that safe, away from the situation, then ask yourself, how do I feel? What is it that caused me to be upset? And then allow whatever information is available to you to come. And if you have not been accustomed to paying attention to this, you might not have any information come. It might be no answer. Or it might be, and all the stories. Okay. So allow that to be there. And then after that stops, just kind of like get to a pause. And it's like, okay, what do I actually feel? And just start asking yourself different questions and see what's there. Because you haven't been accustomed to doing this, who knows what's going to happen? But be open to different responses and see if you can get below that, the automatic story that runs. It's like, what's underneath that?
What's the
Do I
specifics?
feel
What's the
sad?
real depth or story?
Yes.
What's really going on? What is this about? Are you, as we said before, are you angry at this person specifically? Or are you angry because they said something, they did something that brought you back to a memory from many years ago that you put a wall up and said, nope, I'm not tolerating that ever again. If anybody ever does that, blah, blah, blah. But like you said, it's about you got to stop, take a pause, step away. I've counseled married couples that fight a lot. I'm like, you know what? Sometimes you just go, hey, I need to take a pause because I'm not in the right state to continue this
Mm-hmm.
discussion because tempers are going up and up and up. And as we said earlier, that serves nothing. No resolution will be
Mm-hmm.
found. But if we can take a pause, step away for a moment, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour, and reset. I'm going to hearken to your sign. Take some deep belly breaths. That is an amazing tool that everybody has. You know, intentional breathing can help calm you down so quickly.
And then ultimately, the recommendation is to get help. And outside of yourself, outside of the situation, person who can be objective and who can help you start to see things differently. I call it getting an outside of my head perspective. Because I still get upset, I still do my thing. I need somebody else to drip information into my system that is different for me to be able to shift to a different perspective. So really, find someone who can help you clear some of this stuff out.
Right. And I say, sometimes it's just they're holding a mirror up, right? Like, see, just look in the mirror.
Yep.
All right. Final question. If someone listens and reconsiders their relationship with anger, what is the most important thing you'd want them to understand?
One is that they're okay. It's natural to feel anger. And if you are having that question, there is part of you that is judging yourself for it. And so it's okay. It's normal. And when you are able to allow yourself to just be yourself, whatever that looks like, and then adjust from
And
there.
feel what you're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not that you're broken. It's not that there's anything that needs to be fixed. As we said, it's about examination. Like, what is bringing this emotion? What is the, not the surface level story, but what's the deeper truth, right? And what I'm hearing, and I want you to hear as listeners, anger is not the enemy. I would say it's a part of us that knows there's something that matters that you haven't listened to yet. Sandra, I wanted,
It's a call for attention.
yeah, it's a call for attention. And as you said, and I 100% agree, it will call and call, and it will get louder progressively. And then it will eventually take you down in some way.
Here's how my NLP teacher says it. It starts off being a feather, and then it's like a brick, and then it's a 2x4, and then it's a Mack truck. So you want to get the message when it's small. You do not want an accident or an illness to come and whack you and demand that you pay attention. Get the signal when it's soft.
Yes. Respond to the signal as early as you can. You might not catch the feather. It might take you getting to the 2x4, but at least you're not going to get the Mack truck.
Yes.
Because I've had them both. Not fun, not recommended. There's a better way. That's part of why I started on this journey that I'm on. Sandra, I want to say thank you for your time, your wisdom, for coming to share it with us. What's the best way for people to find you or reach out to you?
The easiest way would be for them to get a free gift that I am giving them, and then that will get them on my email list. So I have a happy and harmonious relationships worksheet that they can get. And to go to shinewithsandra.com/happy. Shinewithsandra.com/happy. And Shawn will have that address.
Yes, I will have it down in the show notes, as well as, if it's okay with you, Sandra, social links like LinkedIn, etc.
Yeah. And if you actually know you want to have an appointment with me, then he'll have access to a link for that as well.
All right. Thanks again, Sandra. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And remember, anger isn't a problem. It's just a signal. Or any of the other emotions on the spectrum.
Absolutely.
Bye-bye. Thanks for tuning in to Daily Power Boost. Ignite your potential. Remember, transformation starts with action. So take today's insight, make it your own, and awaken your inner potential. Because remember, greatness begins within. Catch you tomorrow for your next Power Boost.